Styled by Science CEOs is hosted by me, Megan Martis.
And me, Ayo Egby. We are young CEOs and founders of ventures in the clothing industry. I am the founder of Hangyo, a premium clothing care company.
And I'm the founder of Clovo, a natural undergarment company. With our shared backgrounds in science and engineering, we take a unique lens to talk about sustainability, representation, and innovation.
To do this, we bring on incredible changemakers in the clothing industry to grow awareness and positive change.
Our changemaker today is Loriza from Refined, who is building a marketplace that aims to grow inclusivity and sustainability through community growth. So welcome to our podcast, Loriza. How are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited.
Yeah, of course. We're super excited to have you on. I think that you're a great change maker in the fashion industry. So I would love to hear more about Refined and what really inspired you to start building this marketplace.
Yeah. Well, Refined is a sustainable fashion marketplace. The thing that really pushed me to create the marketplace was definitely my background. I worked in retail for over 7 years in personal styling, managing, sales, you name it, I did it. So you get really, in the weeds of it, and you start to see all the flaws that kind of like make the fashion industry go round. So I was like starting to ask myself all these questions because I specifically was seeing a lot of like online returns. That's kind of where it all started. I had on more than one occasion have customers come in with like IKEA size bags of online returns. And on more than one occasion, these returns were from like 2010, which was like 5 years ago. So
what?
Yeah, and that wasn't something that was like uncommon. So I started to look into like all of these things, like, okay, what is the company going to do with these returns? And that just kind of led me down this really deep like hole into seeing like all of the waste in the supply chain and all of these things that just factored into creating one piece of clothing. And I love technology, I love fashion, and I love community. So I put all this together to create Refined.
Wow, I love how like your whole journey has come from your personal experience. I arguably think that's where the best ideas come from, when you're just like living your life and then you're like, this is not right. This could be better. So that's cool to hear your story and your background with it. So tell us a little bit more about like yourself and like your goals and how Refined kind of plays into all of that and what Refined is exactly too.
Yeah. Well, a little bit about me, like I have always loved fashion. I love interacting with people and I love finding solutions. So with the fashion industry, you need to know a lot of the context in order to actually start creating and implementing change. So a lot of the things that I do with Refined is one, educating consumers on why it's important to shop sustainable, what it means to be sustainable and buy ethical and eco-friendly products. I think a lot of people don't know what they don't know. So I think it's really important to kind of frame the questions for the consumer so that they do know what to ask when they are shopping. Because once you do that, then you become a more intentional shopper. And that's really the whole goal for Refine, is to, one, build a community for intentional shoppers, but educate the consumer on why it's important.
It definitely makes a lot of sense. And I love what you're doing. I think that's really awesome. So I guess along this journey so far, have you had any challenges in like figuring out how to do this education and reaching consumers, or what's that been like so far?
I mean, I kind of feel like I'm on the journey with everyone as well. Like, I definitely don't claim to be the expert. I think I spend a lot of time, educating myself, but I like to make things really relatable and digestible because I feel like personally I have a lot of friends that I share information with and they're just like, I don't know, I'm just not really there yet. And I have to figure out how do I get across to these people who are not necessarily like all the way in, but they're teeter-tottering. So it's like, okay, how do I make people become more aware of this problem? And how do I make people care about it? And I think the bottom line is like, not everyone's going to care about it. That's just kind of the reality of it. But I think what's important is to just have that sense of awareness. Maybe you're not you haven't committed to sustainability, but at least you can understand what it means to think about, how long you keep your clothing, and how to repair your clothing and things like that. So I just feel like there's so many different ways to be an intentional shopper. And I think through catering to the audience that I'm trying to cater to, I've kind of learned the different avenues to reach them, whether it be through small digestible information or like small steps they can take, or maybe brands that they might love that they didn't know exist.
I love that. And I think a big thing I keep hearing is like the education piece. That's really where it all starts. Like people definitely, it's important to be aware of like your clothes and where they come from and like their journey and the options that you have. So I love that you're really filling that gap, because I know growing up, that wasn't a thing. I think now that I've gotten older and I've been more intentional about where I shop and also building a company too, seeing all that happens with behind the scenes to make a product, it's given me a lot more appreciation for what I buy. So tell us a little bit more about your founder journey. Like, when did you start Refined, and what has been like your journey throughout it, and then where are you now?
Yeah. So funny enough, I was actually still working my retail job when I started Refined. And Refined was actually just like this project I was doing for school. So
Nice.
it was like this project that I just dedicated so much time to. And then after I like presented it, we had to like present it to like angel investors. And they were like, you should really actually do this. And I was like, you think? And it was like, I don't know, it just was one of those things where like I kind of always wanted to, like I said, connect community, innovation, and fashion together. And then I ended up creating something for a school project that like threw me into this whole journey. And the journey has been long, but very rewarding, because I think in the beginning, I wasn't sure what it would turn into. But the more that I went along with it and like just kept moving forward, I really identified what was missing in the market. I did a few incubators and accelerators and started to hone in on the real problem and curating a very realistic solution. So I've been working on this for about 2 years, and we'll be launching at the end of this month. And it's crazy. Like it's, but yeah, I mean, the struggle is real for all entrepreneurs. Like it's not easy. It takes a lot of perseverance, I will say, because you can quit at any given moment. Like no one's making you do this. But I think it's really important to go down a path that you're truly passionate about, because then you just never get tired of it, you know? So for me, this is something that I'll always have a passion for. I'll always want to, and I think it's ever changing too. The sustainable fashion industry is emerging, I would say. So there's brands that come up all the time that are trying to be innovative and create new solutions. So it's just exciting to be a part of like this time.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like perfect timing for Refined with like the changes in the industry. So I love that. And did you start, correct me if I'm wrong, did you start this in college?
I did, yeah.
So what year were you in college when you started it?
I was a senior. I was graduating. And then right when I graduated, I was like, man, I have to keep up the momentum. So I joined an accelerator and I ended up getting second place. And then from that, I just was like, okay, I'm no longer a student. I have to not treat this like a passion project. I have to treat it like a business. And so I just started, really digging in and educating myself on how to do this. And I will say,
Right.
there's no one way to do this. I mean, no one knows what they're doing, but you just go for it.
It's
Right.
incredible. Wow. I had no idea that you also started as a student. That's awesome. It's something that Io and I can definitely connect with.
Yeah.
Super cool. And I've only known you for a few months now. I think we connected a few months ago, but you've definitely done a really impressive job. And I just think that your passion just shines through it all and really differentiates you as a marketplace to really just be reaching for this great goal. So super impressed with you. So
Yeah. And Megan, I think it's cool that we've gotten people on this podcast that started their businesses in college. Like you're
Mhm.
not the only one, Loriza. Like we've had, I want to say, have there been two other
Yeah,
people
two
on
others
this?
so far, I want to say, yeah.
Yeah. And it's so cool, like just meeting other college founders. I feel like college is such a great place to start a company.
Honestly, for sure, because I feel like as a student, as a college student, you can kind of be like, I'm a college student, help me out. I don't know, like ask all the questions. But I will say I encourage people to always ask questions, and like even beyond being a student, I think that's one of the things that I see some people struggle with is like they're afraid to ask questions or like seem like they're not the expert. And I'm like, nobody's the experts. We can always know more about something.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Could really Google anything these days and it'll come up. So
Yeah. Or
that-
connect with anyone. Like there's LinkedIn, there's social media, like so much easier now than before. So you talked like a lot about kind of the issues that you saw, which I think was like a really important point because that's where Refine came from.
Mhm.
What do you think are the changes that need to be made in the industry?
That's a good question. Um, I think the biggest thing is like truly, I think that brands really need to put their resources into understanding the impact. I don't think that like the industry as a whole truly understands the entire impact that they make. I think we're slowly like we're like, oh, like dang, like this is like we create this much waste and we're emitting this much carbon emission. Like I think there needs to be more resources into understanding, like I said, like the context of the problem so that we can actually create solutions. In addition to that, I think policies, I think many brands won't abide by anything unless it's a policy or it's the law that you have to treat people, humanely and pay them a living wage and all of these things. I think there's a good ways to go in creating like really big impact, but I think that there's really um, very specific steps that we're already taking to kind of go that way in a positive direction. So I would say truly understanding the impact and the policies, implementing policies.
Oh, yeah. Really, really important things you mentioned.
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely agree. I think that it's really important to trace the impact because I think when people try to do like life cycle analysis of their brands, they really just don't know what impact they're making from production to end of life because they're not tracking it at all. And it's definitely something that everyone needs to work on because it's a very hard number to get accurate, but that just shows how much more work needs to be done. So I
Yeah.
definitely think there's like the resources available to do it.
Yeah. I think if you're going to be a intentional or sustainable brand, I think that you should put your money where they say, and actually, invest in the resources to truly track and have that traceability because truly that's what's going to set your brand apart is, you're going to gain loyal consumers and consumers are going to respect the fact that you're really in this and that you're trying to make a difference.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. So if Io and I were to join Refined, is there any sort of like certification that we go through, or like how would you put us on like a sustainability scale on the platform?
Yeah, I get that question a lot. And I would say that we're not as traditional as every other marketplace. Um, but it's only because I think Refine understands that small brands can't always get the certifications. It's actually quite difficult to get certified. So the thing that I personally
Mhm.
do is I get to know the founders. I think it's really important to understand why the founder started their brand, what's your intention with the brand, what are your brand values and your mission and your vision, and where do you see your brand in 5 years? I think that's way more important than just seeing kind of like the broadness of a brand, but getting into good conversations and understanding of where the founder is and what they believe and what they value.
I love that, honestly, because yeah, certifications are hard to get and they're also really expensive. So it creates like a limitation. And sometimes certifications don't always like show the whole picture of a brand. Like for example, we had a professor come on another podcast and talks about Thinks underwear and how they're actually in a class action lawsuit right now because of the chemicals they have in their underwear, even though they're certified to not have those chemicals. So you really sometimes it's like, what can you trust?
Exactly. And you know, one of the things that I encourage with all of the brands that I connect with is like, I'm going to amplify you as a founder first. I think it's so important for consumers to know the person behind the brand because there's so much relatability in that. It's like there's someone just like you on the other side, and here's what they believe. And I just feel like that's so much more powerful than leading with like, here's a cute top, you know? It's like, okay, this is Megan and this is what she believes in and this is why she started the brand. Do you align with this? Do you have questions for her? So that's kind of like I've kind of opened it up for my audience to ask those questions so that I can relate to the founders.
Wow, I love that. And I love that you mentioned the values because I think every company has their own set of values, whether they proclaim it or not. And I think like understanding that really gives clarity on how the business operates, like why they make the certain decisions that they do, whether they're great or they're not so great. And so I like that you're taking more of like a down to earth, like holistic approach, human approach to vetting people for and brands for your platform. And so I'd love to learn more about, I have two questions, but I'd love to learn more about how, like, tell us like more about how Refined works. Like what is that whole pipeline for brand and what solution or what problem is Refined solving for? Like, give us a little bit more about the product you want to know.
Yeah, for sure. So I think that the biggest thing that I realized when interviewing just like consumers and brands, it's like for the consumers, they don't know where to look. They don't know what is sustainable. They don't know where can I find these sustainable brands and how do I know if they're sustainable? So that's one. And for the brands, they struggle with actually being able to communicate and share their brand story. So with Refined, we're leading with a brand story and connecting the intentional shoppers to the brand. So whenever you come to our platform, you'll be able to take a very quick quiz. And that's basically us asking you, like, what's your lifestyle like? How would you spend a typical day? Would you be at a farmer's market? Are you more a 9 to 5er? Like asking these realistic questions, not only about like your lifestyle, but like, you know, what are some things that you really care about? Do you care about women empowerment? Do you care about giving back? Do you care about water stewardship? And, you know, we catered these questions so that the output is you're connected to these brands that one, match your lifestyle because that's really important. And two, they match your values. So you're able to kind of like feel good about what you're shopping for, and you feel good about supporting them as well with the brand. So that's kind of how that works, if that makes sense.
That definitely makes sense. And I love how it's like very like curates a specific experience for them. I think that's very unique.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like many times it is difficult to know where to look. Even when I'm doing research for my own like blog posts and stuff, I'll Google something and it's like the same top brands always. Like
Yeah.
I would have never found like Vade or Natalia Trevino or Past Life Collective on Google. Like I never found them because it's usually like good on you promoting these larger brands, which is great. But there's so many other brands. And one of the things that I really value is like inclusivity. And when I say inclusivity, I mean like attainability, price points, styles, sizing, like all of those things are so important. And yeah, there's a million brands that are actually out there ready to cater to your values and needs, and people don't know about them. So with Refine, we're connecting all of these like missing gaps, or these filling the gaps and connecting the consumers to what they're really looking for.
Loriza, you're gonna make me spend all my money on your platform. Like, I'm nervous. I'm nervous for your launch. Okay, because I absolutely love that. I love that, and I think I am like your consumer, because usually how I'll find new brands, new products is Instagram through like the recommended. But I mean, I'm pretty sure there's like so many more brands out there that I just don't know about because I don't know where to find them.
Mhm.
So I think that's amazing that you're solving it like that, or solving the problem through a way that's like really effective and also like fun. I feel like because shopping's fun, a way to like help the consumer, but also like support the brands in an innovative way. And my second question was, where did the name Refine come from? I feel like it's really neat and there's a story behind it. Am I wrong?
I mean, there's like a story behind it, but like it's not like what you think. It's um honestly, I was just like thinking about like like I thought about sustainability, and sustainability is like all of these things. It literally is circularity. It's like it's vintage clothing. It's repurposed item. It's like all of these things. And the one core thing that I found that was like the common denominator is like refining something, like all like it was all the same, you know, like even when brands make the items are using dead stock. So that means it's been used, but it's come back around and now it's getting refined into something else. So it was like, okay, that was a good name for it. So I was like, it makes sense to me. And if anybody asks, like you did, I can do my best to explain it. So
I love it though. I think that your reasoning behind it's really great and definitely explains a lot about the brand itself. So I think you did a good choice. So another question that we like to ask, especially women founders, is like, what is like your experience being a woman founder in the very male-dominated entrepreneur world? Like, do you have any stories to share around that topic, or what's your story, I guess, in general?
I have I have some stories. But the one thing that I will share is like, don't underestimate yourself, because there's always going to be an army of people trying to tell you, because you're a woman, because you're a woman of color, because you're a young woman of color, that you won't be able to attain something. And that's just like so absolutely wrong. I have experienced some things where they're like, why are you wasting your time on this? Or like, I've literally had people tell me that. Like, not any,
Wow.
I've never had a woman say that to me, but I've definitely had a man say that to me. And I've had a group of men say a lot of different things. But it's because the fashion industry is kind of viewed as like this girly thing. And I'm like, but it's a male dominated industry. You're benefiting from the fact that, you know, it is a women like girly industry, and there's a lot of money in it. So for me, it's like, you know what, I'm going to do it with or without you. And that's the one thing to remember, I feel like, as a woman founder. Don't underestimate yourself. You probably know your stuff way better than any man, because we're the main primary consumers.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. It's especially when you have, like you said, a very woman-focused business, it's almost impossible for them to understand for some reason. Like I've been asked to explain the problems with tights to some men, they just because they never wear tights. But I feel like if it was a product for a man, a woman would never ask the same kind of question. Like you just don't really like test people like that, just depending on their gender, unfortunately.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, it's a wild world out there, but we got this, I think. And yeah, I mean, it can be hard, and it can definitely like put you down sometimes, especially when the majority of investors are male. But I think just like confidence and owning the room and knowing that you know your industry and you know the problem that you're solving, and just speak to it just as confidently as any man would, because half the time it's all this like ego that comes in, and they're like, I'm here. We just have to
Yeah.
do the same.
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice, that confidence piece, because I mean the stick is already short, so I think we as women entrepreneurs have to like show up, and that confidence is a really big piece. So I'm really glad you mentioned that piece of advice, because I know for me personally, that has helped. When I go on with the most confidence, I go on with the most enthusiasm, and also data too. Um,
Yeah.
they love to see that you have X amount of people on your wait list, you have this much traction, and I think that helps too, like just create a really strong story, strong pitch. So glad that you mentioned that. So for Refined, where are you now with team, and then where do you eventually see Refined in the next 5 years? Like what's the goal?
Yeah, I mean, currently the goal is to launch at the end of this month.
It's a good one.
That's the main goal. And then, my goal is to continue to get more and more brands on board to, really show that there's so much variety and talent out there that's not just like big brands. Um, and within the next 2 years, hire a team, because it is just me and like a strategist currently that I contract. Um, my first hire, I know for sure, will be a sustainability officer. So someone that can really dig into sustainability with me and figure out um, new solutions, new ways to help the community, and be more involved with actionable steps aside from, having a marketplace. And then in 5 years, I hope to have a brick and mortar location. That's like really my biggest goal. I really want to have a brick and mortar location, one, so that I can educate people in person, like have workshops for consumers to come in if they're interested, for brands to come in if they, want to learn how to get certified, and then for people to be able to shop, touch, and feel the products, and just like have a rotation of brands in my store. That would be great.
Wow. Okay. Let me drop the address whenever you open up your brick and mortar. You'll see me there. So we love to ask this last question to all of our guests, because we know that you guys are already making change, and you will continue to make change. And so we just want to kind of just highlight that, your journey. And so for you, Loriza, what is the future impact that you hope to make in this space and beyond?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest impact that I hope to make is to be able to shift consumers' mindset into what it means to be a consumer. I really hope that uh, by Refined being a place to shop and educational, that we start to see more demand in better places. So either, shopping from brands that really align with people's values, or shopping less and just being aware of the fact that wherever we buy from and how much we buy, it's all making an impact. So every little thing that you do is going towards something good if you're being an intentional shopper.
Definitely. I love that. I think that's incredible. So I guess if people wanted to come and follow your journey and get ready for your exciting launch at the end of the month, where would they find you?
Yeah, you can find us on Instagram at refined underscore shopping, at refind_shopping. Or you can,
Monday, there's Grace.
yeah, or you can visit us at our website, which is www.refind.shopping.
Perfect. Definitely go check it out. I know that she's collected a lot of great brands that are going to be launched soon. So really excited to see that.
Yeah, so Loriza, I am just so impressed by you and your confidence, your passion, your story, and also your conviction. I feel like you're such a great example for young women who find a problem, create a solution and are like going after it full speed ahead. And so today, my biggest takeaway from you is just that conviction piece. It's just like really being passionate about something and figuring out a way to like solve it, and being like really thoughtful and caring about the problem, and that empathetic approach. Because you talked a lot about like thinking about the consumer and like really helping the consumer and educating the consumer, which I feel like is a new kind of narrative, or a narrative I don't hear all the time. And so that's probably the biggest thing, like just your empathetic approach to the problem and your conviction in it and your execution of actually seeing it through.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Megan?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, Ayo. I think those were some good points. I also think that I just love how you really bring it back down to the founders. And I think that if you can really trust the person that's creating these products, that creates a whole new level of like understanding that they are really not greenwashing. I think that a lot of big companies are greenwashing these days. And as you said, they're like the ones promoted the most and like maybe aren't making that impact. So I think that being able to connect to the founders while also creating a very curated experience based off their lifestyle is just really a special place to go shop. And I'm really excited for it. I think, like Aya said, I'm going to have a dangerous time on that website.
It'd be so bad. We should shop together, Megan. That's
Yeah.
worse.
Yeah, honestly, we'll buy everything.
Awesome. Well, we learned so much from you, and it was so great to hear your story. And with that, we want to close out. So thank you guys so much for listening to the Styled by Science CEOs podcast. Feel free to let us know what you thought about on this podcast episode. What did you learn? What did you take away from Loriza? What inspired you? Let us know in the reviews, or you can send us an email or drop us a DM. We will be looking at them. So thank you so much for listening, and we will see you again on the Styled by Science CEOs podcast next time.